So the Seattle mayor is labeling anti-ICE riots and protests as largely peaceful, as Washington state officials blame who? They're blaming Donald Trump for the violence. Every time you see a video of a car burning, every time you see a video of protesters throwing rocks and concrete and projectiles at law enforcement, it's not their fault. It's actually Donald Trump is actually the people who are trying to keep the peace, who are trying to preserve order. It's actually their fault, not the protesters. And this is the same thing that happened with LA Mayor Karen Bass, I believe her name is, where she said the reason for all of the violence, the reason for people looting, you saw the videos of them looting Nike stores, Apple stores, and other stores. The reason for this is not them. It's actually Donald Trump and his ICE agents. It's him sending in the National Guard and the military. It's not the fault of the individual themselves who are choosing to do these criminal acts, ironically. It's actually someone completely unrelated to them, and the rioters are not to blame. It's actually the fact that Donald Trump wants to deport illegal immigrants from the United States, and this Seattle mayor is just the latest in the long line of Democrats who are refusing to condemn the chaos, refusing even to encourage peaceful protests, but are instead enabling the chaos by giving the rioters a scapegoat and not holding them accountable for their own actions. But despite widespread unrest, arson, and violent clashes with police during 2 consecutive nights of anti-ICE riots in Washington state, top Democratic officials in Seattle and Olympia are continuing to describe the events as largely peaceful. I watched a video just the other day, and CNN is really famous for this largely peaceful line. If you guys remember, during the Summer of Love, CNN was a laughingstock because they were reporting on all of the BLM riots, and in the background you could see all these things, these buildings burning, these cars burning, all of the violence and riots that were going on. And they were describing them as largely peaceful. And I thought it was very interesting because CNN initially was trying to frame these riots in a way that they were mostly peaceful. And that changed a few days ago when they finally decided maybe this is not the best look. Maybe calling a riot mostly peaceful, maybe that's not a good idea because people can see with their eyes that these riots are not peaceful. But these Democrats are continuing to describe the events as largely peaceful while placing the blame on President Donald Trump, who played no direct role in the violence. Yes, so Donald Trump, he's not out there. He's not lighting cars on fire. He's not speaking to these individuals in a way that would cause them to act this way. They're acting this way on their own with a little goading from the Democrat Party and from the funders of these riots. On Wednesday night, a permitted protest in Seattle spiraled into chaos outside the Henry M. Jackson Federal Building. Rioters dressed in Antifa black bloc hurled rocks, fireworks, and bottles at officers, set dumpsters on fire, and barricaded federal agents inside the building. You know what that sounds? That sounds kind of like an insurrection. That's what this sounds like to me. They're barricading federal agents inside the building. I mean, it's bad enough. They're hurling rocks. I mean, these are all lethal weapons if used in the correct way, in a specific way. They're hurling these at officers. They're using fireworks, bottles, setting dumpsters on fire. That's bad. They might be adjacent to buildings, so maybe they light the building on fire. But they're barricading federal agents inside buildings. That's crazy. 8 people were arrested after SPD declared a riot and used dispersal measures to regain control. The violent outburst followed a similar scene the previous day when demonstrators burned American flags, blocked ICE vehicles, and assaulted journalists. And here is some of the scene from Seattle last night. So here we have anti-ICE activists set fire to a blockade outside the federal building in Seattle. So if we take a look at this here, and all of a sudden the camera goes upside down. So they set fire outside the federal building, and here is another video of that. This appears to be a dumpster, maybe a dumpster fire. Some people are throwing boxes on the fire. It appears to be in the middle of a walkway, in the middle of a street. So that's kind of to set the scene as to what is going on here. And also a man saves an American flag. Let's go to the post here. After a Mexican nationalist attempted to throw it into a burning dumpster at the anti-ICE riot in Seattle. And this is one of the things that Donald Trump wants to make illegal. I believe he said he wanted it to come with a 1-year stint in prison. If you burn an American flag, there should be some consequences for that. So this is a video. A man saves the American flag. Someone tried to throw the flag into the bonfire, and this brave patriot, at risk to his life, most likely, because he's not surrounded by people who are exactly very nice. Let's just put it that way. He saves the American flag, and he puts himself in danger. So that's pretty wild there. Scroll down here. Seattle Mayor Bruce, however, so keep in mind the whole kind of backdrop of this protest or riot. Look at these things. The burning. You hear all of the people beating on things, beating on drums. You see all of the individuals who are gathered blocking these roadways. Of course, you heard about the federal agents that were barricaded in the buildings. And now this is what the Seattle mayor had to say. Instead of saying, hey, follow the law, don't barricade federal officers in buildings, don't set things on fire. This is what Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell had to say. And I'm actually going to go to his tweet directly. He said, last night's protests remained largely peaceful, and I'm grateful for SPD officers who exercised professionalism to disperse the demonstration when violence occurred. While we are grateful for those who peacefully express their views, we will not tolerate violence and destruction. And he retweeted this statement about immigration enforcement in Seattle. He said, quote, the Trump administration's actions in Los Angeles are an extreme and egregious overreach of federal authority meant to escalate tensions and distract from his failures to live up to the promises he hasn't delivered on, which is interesting because one of these big promises that Donald Trump is attempting to deliver on is deportations. That's one of the reasons why he was elected in the first place. There are 4 big reasons why I believe that Donald Trump was elected. He was elected to secure the border and facilitate deportations. He was elected to end wars. He was elected because of the economy. And there was one more. I can't remember the last one, but there were 4 big reasons. But my point is that one of these big reasons was the deportation of illegal immigrants. So this is not him, trying to put up this mirage saying, hey, I'm failing, therefore I need to do deportations. No, this is him directly trying to facilitate deportations and riots and mobs going against him. He goes on to say, quote, we disagree with Trump's ICE policy of mass deportations that has already been on full display in American communities, with arrests, detentions, and deportations often occurring in violation of due process. Okay. Seattle strongly supports the First Amendment rights of our residents, and we encourage residents to stand up for their values peacefully. There is no room for violence. Violence and property damage are exactly what Trump wants to spin his false narrative of our city. And, Donald Trump doesn't have to spin a narrative for people to see with their own eyes exactly what is going on in Seattle. It's similar to what is going on in LA, or what happened in LA. Fortunately, in Chicago, it didn't seem to be quite as bad. But Saturday might be an inflection point for a lot of this because they're holding these mass no king protests. And some of these protests are happening even in tiny little towns. I'm not going to tell you where I live, but I don't live in a very large town. It's pretty small, okay? I've lived in large cities, and as I've gotten older, I have preferred smaller towns. Saturday, there is one going on in my town, and it's very small. So it's going to be interesting. I might drive by and see what happens there. But earlier that day, continuing on this article, Harrell had already preemptively blamed Trump for unrest in Seattle, even though the federal government had not initiated any known ICE operations in the city. So he was blaming Donald Trump before the ICE officers were ever there. And then, of course, they moved in, and we have this individual right here, Katie Daviscourt. She is covering the situation in Seattle. She says, breaking, Seattle PD moves in on anti-ICE rioters outside the federal building in Seattle. So this appears to be where these federal officers were being barricaded in by rioters. Does this appear to be mostly peaceful to you? I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and say, for me, no. I have eyes and I have a brain. This doesn't appear to be mostly peaceful, at least how they characterize mostly peaceful. So we have the Seattle PD trying to dismantle anti-ICE rioters, because that is exactly what they are. They are rioters. And then we have thousands of anti-ICE activists protesting at the federal building in Seattle. Hundreds of Black Bloc Antifa are here in riot gear. The building has been vandalized with graffiti, blockades erected in front of every exit, and a man urinated on the building. So let's take a look at this. Hopefully it doesn't show the last part here. So this is the graffiti. And I guess the exits, haven't seen the exits yet, but I guess they're barricaded. It looks like right there, right in the middle of the screen, you can kind of see where there are some barricades on the exit. And here we have, look, yeah, okay, that's that one part. We got barricades on the exit. People, I mean, this is just mass pandemonium, mass chaos. People are standing on, looks like bus stops. I mean, it looks like thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. They have the revolving doors barricaded, graffiti on the glass, causing damage to federal government property. And this is what the Seattle mayor is describing as mostly peaceful. But what else can we expect from Democrats? They are, of course, they're the party of law and order, right? Nobody is above the law until someone acts out and they have a reason to be served by law enforcement. Until that happens, or when that happens, all of a sudden they become the victim. And Donald Trump is somehow fascist. He's a fascist regime. It's very interesting. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.